So I read a news headline today that said, America may end. Now, I don't say that to scare you or to alarm you, but it was quite alarming to me. And I don't think everyone read the headline the exact same way that I did, but I'm going to show you this headline, and I'm going to show you why I believe so strongly in the cryptocurrency space. It's a little bit scary, but it's not as scary as those who don't understand what's happening around us. So take a look. See if you can spot the headline. This is one of the most dangerous headlines that I've read in recent times. Can you spot it? Do you see it? I'm going to show you. It's right here. It's actually right here. China may halt purchases of U.S. Treasuries. Markets rattled. And when you click on the link, it takes you here. China weighs on slowing or halting purchase of U.S. Treasuries. The markets all went down a little bit today. They went down a bit more, and then they recovered a little bit as well. But here's the reason. The reason that they recovered is because nothing concrete was given, except for the first time in our history, China said they may stop purchasing U.S. Treasuries. Let me explain why that is dangerous and why this is huge fundamentally for those of us that are adopting cryptocurrencies. Take a look for just a moment. I want to just mention once again, I've previously talked about looking at the video, the documentary Money as Debt. If you've done that already, then this is going to be very clear to you. If you haven't, then I encourage you to take some time and look at the top of this video somewhere. I'm going to place a link, but it's Money as Debt. You really want to go watch that documentary, but here's part of what is a small part of what's discussed in that documentary. Basically, the U.S. government has debt that continues to rise at a very rapid pace. In fact, here is the U.S. debt clock. This is real time. You can go to usdebtclock.org. This is real time. That is 12 places right there. U.S. national debt is $20 trillion. That is $20 trillion. And this is real time how fast that it's going up, the debt. Notice the debt is going up. It's not coming down. How is it possible that our debt can be going up so fast? Like, where's the money coming from? So the U.S. is in debt to everything. Our biggest debt, by the way, is providing Medicare and Medicaid. These are our single largest budget items. Social Security, defense, income security, i.e. SSI, the interest on our debt, and federal pensions. The interest on our debt is over $250 billion. This is growing by the moment. The interest on our debt. So the U.S. government spending has went up since 2000 by 136%. This is the U.S. deficit. This is how much U.S. federal budget deficit. So understand that this number right here is the difference between the total amount spent by Congress and the revenue received by the IRS. So this means the number is going down a little bit right now, and that sounds great, but do you know how long it's going to take? And it only takes one law change or one spending change for this to go in the other direction. It will momentarily, it's going in the right direction right now, but this is rare, and hopefully it continues to go that way. It may be too late, and that news headline says it all. So this is the deficit, a $656 billion, a $656 billion deficit that we currently have. That means that the government is short $656 billion annually. And that's what leads to this $20 trillion number here. And despite the fact that the deficit is going in the right direction, our debt is still going up higher and higher. Part of that is because of the interest on our debt. We are having a hard time as a nation meeting the interest on our debt. We don't have the money. Now you may be wondering, well, we've got to be doing something, and we haven't went into default. I want to explain this for a moment. Our debt continues to rise. So as a country, what we do is we loan money. Now we loan money in the form of U.S. treasuries or treasury bonds. Our U.S. treasuries get sold to citizens, countries, anyone. You can buy a U.S. treasury today if you wanted. You're going to earn a small micro percentage. U.S. treasuries are known to be very safe. And the reason they're safe is because they're backed up by the full faith and credit of the U.S. government. So the U.S. government says, no matter what, we're going to pay this debt. Now, pay attention, stick with me for a moment, because I'm going to show you why this was so scary earlier today. They say no matter what, we're going to pay this debt, but the question has to be, well, how in the world do they pay their debt? Literally, what the U.S. government does is they ring up the Federal Reserve Bank. If you don't know what the Federal Reserve is, you should probably research that. Fed Reserve. Let's see if I can do an R down here. They ring up the Federal Reserve. They say, hey, we need basically more money. And what happens is they issue money in the form of debt to the government. The government has to pay that back. So they issue money to the government. The government has to agree to pay that back. The U.S. government does not directly print money. The Federal Reserve essentially issues money. So they're going in debt to the Federal Reserve. However, the way they pay their debts is by issuing these treasuries. They issue treasuries to anyone from the Federal Reserve, to citizens, and to governments like the Chinese government. Chinese government is the largest, either the largest or second largest holder of U.S. Treasury, meaning U.S. Treasury debt. Now, what they do with that debt is they buy that debt with dollars. Now, you may wonder, where do they get their dollars from? There's another video you can put above. It's about a 5-minute video that explains this better. But essentially, since China imports their companies import so much stuff to the U.S., and U.S. citizens buy it. So basically, it's like this: they issue or they send goods and services to the U.S. like products. Think electronics, consumer electronics, Walmart goods, toys, etc. They send products to the U.S. U.S. citizens buy those products. Why? Because they're cheaper, a lot cheaper in some cases. But they're buying these cheap products with U.S. Actually, this is easier, with U.S. dollars. The Chinese government exchanges those dollars for the local currency, and they do it in such a way to keep their currency low so their labor is cheap, so they continue to produce products that are cheap compared to the world standards, specifically the US standards. So they end up with a lot of dollars. What do they do with those dollars? They have to find a way to be able to invest in the safest possible place they know of, the same place that a lot of Americans invest, in US securities. So that's where this comes from. They send US dollars because they buy US debt. They're one of the biggest buyers of U.S. debt. This gives the government the dollars that it needs badly, and so therefore they can, pay down some of their debt or kick the can down the road. What they literally do, imagine paying your mortgage with your credit card. That is a very fair comparison to what the U.S. government is doing. Now, if you understand what quantitative easing is, that's where the Federal Reserve basically issued debt and at the same time like balled up the same debt they were issuing. That sounds crazy and it sounds asinine, but it's the reality of what's going on with quantitative easing. So now here, this is all good. This works for a long time. Heck, it's worked for years. The only time, keep in mind, the reason Chinese government is buying the debt is because it's backed up by the full faith and credit of the U.S. government, because the U.S. government can always continue to print more money, and they have a large taxable citizen base. Here's the challenge. How long, if you're the Chinese government, do you think, at some point this becomes a problem? The U.S. government currently has a problem paying their own interest on their own debt. So at some point you have to question, when are they going to lose faith? And if they lose faith, here's the thing. U.S. debt held by foreign countries, $6 trillion. $6 trillion. Now what happens if all of a sudden they stop buying this debt? It means they stop bringing in dollars. It means the only way the U.S. government can government can pay their bills is to print more money. Anytime you print more money, the money loses value. Anytime there's more of anything, it loses value. Again, go watch the documentary Money as Debt. And it's because of this very idea that the U.S. government can print money through the Federal Reserve and they are issuing debt indefinitely, that has a lot of people looking at things like Bitcoin. It's the same reason people used to look at gold and silver, except Bitcoin is more portable and is more easily to transact in an electronic environment. So that's why so many people like cryptocurrencies, specifically Bitcoin. Now, if the US government stops buying, if the Chinese government stops buying US debt, no one knows what that could mean. It could lead to a US economic collapse and probably a world collapse. And the Chinese government knows this. That's why they've worked so hard to divest, if you will. They've always been considering other areas to invest in coin. I'm sorry, to invest their US dollars. A lot of countries will take US dollars. So that and that's the quandary that China's in. If they don't buy US debt, what do they buy? And the question is, well, if we don't buy US debt, it could lead to a worldwide economic collapse. However, how long can we keep buying debt that the government may not be able to pay back, or they're going to have to pay it back with dollars that are consistently losing value? The Chinese government for years have been encouraging their citizens to buy gold, and the Chinese government for years have been actively buying gold. The Chinese government hates Bitcoin for its citizens. They have recently considered, or they have banned mining Bitcoin, but some argue that they're secretly buying up Bitcoin for the very reason. Who knows? The great thing is, if the dollar collapses and you've been buying Bitcoin, and coincidentally, if you have gold and silver, some of your wealth is preserved. I am not telling you to go out and rush and buy Bitcoin. And someone told me one time, the world has an uncanny way of not ending. However, you need to be aware of what's going on. You need to watch the documentary Money is Debt. And then you need to understand why cryptocurrencies are so important. Because as governments print more money and that money loses value, private citizens lose the money in their savings. If you have $100,000 in your savings, you'll probably always have $100,000 in your savings, but it won't buy what it once would buy. For example, I heard it explained this way. In the early 1900s, an ounce of gold would buy a custom tailored handmade suit. Today, an ounce of gold will still buy a custom tailored suit. However, an ounce of gold in the 1900s wasn't even worth $100. So that you cannot buy a custom handmade suit today for $100. Just for example. That shows how gold has maintained a value that the US dollar has not. However, gold isn't portable. You can only put so much value in gold. That's why the world is probably moving to cryptocurrencies. That's why there's very wealthy millionaires and billionaires that own cryptocurrencies, because they understand this right here. You need to be on the same playing field. You need to understand this that is going on right here. I will get back to my series on mining and how to scale up your mining profits. I'm also going to do some review of the various mining companies that are out there, answer any questions that you may have. But I wanted to get this out there. When I saw that headline today, I thought, wow, that's a little bit scary. I've been aware of this and I've known about this for, oh gosh, probably 6 or 8 years now. And my personal family, we've made plans such as paying down and off our debt. Like, I don't own a mortgage. We paid off our mortgage. I don't have a car payment. We own 2 cars. We bought a car today and paid cash for it. We do not have debt. Why? Because if there's an economic collapse, it's going to be painful. There's no escaping it. But not everyone's going to suffer together. You've got to make decisions for your family. I would encourage you to pick up a second income stream if possible, just to give you another option to be able to pay debt down, to help provide for your family, you want to get out of debt, you want to provide for your family, and you want to be aware of this stuff. You don't know when it's going to happen, but our countries are not doing anything to reverse course. at all. They're not even really attempting to reverse course. So again, I encourage you to watch Money is Debt. It explains this far clearer and in far more details as well. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, let me know. Just be thankful that you're in the crypto space and you're learning about this stuff now. You're ahead of the curve. This is also, by the way, why governments don't like cryptocurrencies. They want you to continue to deal in their national currencies. Governments tend to regulate and potentially over-regulate, I believe, and this is why, because they want you using their currency. So congratulations for being an early adopter. Congratulations for learning about this now and understanding this now. Continue to subscribe to my channel. I will always be putting out, I don't always talk about this in this much detail, but I understand it, I'm aware of it, I pay attention out there, and that is part of the reason that I'm in this space. It is a jungle out there, and it's not just a jungle in the crypto world. Thank you so much for watching. Always do your own research. Don't take anything I say as investment advice. Have a great day. God bless.